want, they really need to think about what Ron Paul has said. They want the IRS around because they want to tax us more, so they have more money of ours to redistribute and more money of ours to assault our liberty with. And while we're talking about Giuliani, I mean, when Ron Paul challenged Giuliani when Giuliani challenged Ron Paul as to the reason for which we are even in the Middle East and the reason the Islamo-fascists hate us.
Yeah.
And Giuliani said, I've never heard anything like your argument before. He obviously hadn't read the 9/11 report. He obviously didn't even read the report of the Iraq Study Group, of which he was a member until they kicked him off, because both of those independent bipartisan groups concluded that the reason we were attacked on 9/11 is because of our foreign policy in the Middle East.
Well, Judge, I heard the president today say that we can't leave Iraq because if we leave Iraq, it will become a haven for terrorists, and that we have to force democracy on those people for our own safety, our own national security interest. How can we not go into Iraq and to other places that have terrorists and be safe as Americans?
His own Secretary of Defense, who's a really sensible guy, I wish he had been Secretary of Defense from the beginning of the Bush presidency, has acknowledged, along with the leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, John Boehner, that we cannot thrust democracy upon these people, that the best that we can hope for is some kind of a stable government. And Bob Gates, the Secretary of Defense, has been candid enough to acknowledge that the situation is so bad in Iraq. So many people have died. So many people have fled the country. So much of the infrastructure has been destroyed. The government is so unstable. We've unleashed such horrific forces in the streets. We've drawn the terrorists from other countries to come there, that the situation is far worse than it was when Saddam Hussein was running it. And Bob Gates himself, as recently as yesterday, when asked if he knew then what he knows now, would he advise the president even to go into Iraq, and he simply answered by saying, I don't know. Now, that's the same answer that General Petraeus gave last week when he was asked if fighting in Iraq has made America safer. He answered by saying, I don't know. So you have the president's principal civilian advisor on matters of defense, the Secretary of Defense, and the general that he plucked from a cadre of generals and has promoted as this brilliant guy with a Ph.D. who's a soldier scholar, both saying the same thing, both expressing serious doubts about whether or not the war in Iraq will make us safer. Ron Paul and, interestingly enough, again, Kenneth Kucinich are the only ones running for president who are saying this. And again, I'm not carrying water for Kucinich. He's a socialist, but he does have the courage of his convictions, and he is, like Ron Paul, right, correct on the war. What Ron has done,
Judge,
is made it comfortable for Republicans to oppose the war, and it was uncomfortable to do that before Ron started his campaign.
All right, well, I know you recognize that music. That's bumper music, and we've got to take a short break. We're talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano, author of the soon-to-be-released Nation of Sheep, and co-host with Brian Kilmeade on Brian and the Judge. We'll be right back. You're listening to The David Allen Show. No doubt on Fox News. He is the author of the soon-to-be-released A Nation of Sheep. He is an expert in constitutional law. None other than Judge Andrew Napolitano joins us. Judge, welcome back.
Good to be back with you, David, my friend.
Now, I have got in the studio with me here in Jacksonville a good friend of mine, Mr. Bill Haft. He has got his own show here on this station at 8 to 11 p.m. weekdays, and he'd love to ask you a question. So Bill, take it away.
How are you, Bill?
I'm well, Judge. How are you doing, sir?
Good to be with you guys.
Nice to have you. Yesterday, President Bush urged Congress to expand the government's domestic spying powers permanently or risk leaving the country vulnerable to another terrorist attack. Is Congress going to do it?
I don't know if Congress is going to do it, and I certainly hope not. But don't count on the Democrats for having courage, except the courage to steal our property and distribute it to others.
Well, in August, the Democrat-led Congress temporarily expanded his authority to monitor phone calls,
emails.
And
that temporary expansion, for the first time in American history, made it lawful, not moral, and not constitutional, because the Congress, thank God, can't change the Constitution, and it certainly can't change the laws of nature. but it made it lawful for the government, the American government, to spy on Americans without any warrant whatsoever, so long as the human being with whom the Americans are speaking is a foreign person in a foreign country. So if you're an American student talking to your roommate in London, and they want to listen to the room, they really want to listen to you, all they have to do is target the London person and tap that person's phone. This has resulted, of course, in many Americans having their phone calls listened to under the guise that it's really the other person, the foreigner to whom they're speaking, that the government is really interested in. And this totally blows away the protections of the Fourth Amendment. It even blows away the very minimalist protections that the FISA statute has given us. The Democrats gave the president this power for 6 months. Yesterday, he asked that he could have it forever.
Well, if the people aren't doing anything that's illegal, why should they care? That's what I'm hearing.
Well, that is the argument of those who really would bring us back to a society like we had in East Germany, where it was a crime not to report a crime, and everybody was reporting everybody else for everything under the sun for fear that they'd be prosecuted for not recording. The government had all kinds of power to surveil everybody and knew everything about everyone else, and there was no individuality, there was no privacy, there was no dignity, and there was no happiness. Because of people that have no sense of self-worth, that have no dignity, that do not have the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, who are close to slaves of the government, can never, ever be happy. If there are people out there in the world who'd rather be slaves but safe, let them go ahead and do it. There's a place where they can live, it's called Russia. If they'd rather be free but endure some risk, then we need to go back to the way things were here before George W. Bush became president and the Republicans took our freedoms away from us. That's what my book is about. It lambasts Americans for looking the other way because our freedoms were taken away by country club Republicans, not by radicals in the streets from the 60s, but by those radicals who grew up and switched to the Republican Party.
But it was done to make us safer. I mean, aren't we safer today because of the Patriot Act? And
Absolutely not, because what we've done is given ourselves a government so powerful that it has become the menace. My friends that are happy to give this power to George W. Bush might not have been happy to give it to his predecessor or to his successor, especially if she has the same last name as the predecessor. You can't give this kind of power to the government because you never know what the government will do with it or who in the government may have it.
Why won't the American people just accept the reality that the President and Congress are not capable of preventing terrorist attacks from occurring?
Because the President and the Congress have succeeded in scaring the daylights out of the American government. The means is fear. The goal is power. The victim is liberty. People in the government are not interested in protecting our freedoms. They're only interested in enhancing their own power. Ron Paul is the only person in my memory, besides Barry Goldwater, who's running for president with the idea of shrinking the government. Everybody else wants to expand it because they think it's a good thing that can accomplish good. It's a necessary evil, and it should be as small as possible.
Now we've talked about A Nation of Sheep. When is that supposed to be released?
A Nation of Sheep will actually be released on October 30th, but you can get it in bookstores probably by around October 21st or October 22nd. And you'll see me all over the airways trying to sell copies of it.
We need to get a hold of your publicist because I want a copy right now so we can get you back on again with us to talk about the book when we've read it.
We'll get 2 copies. My producer knows how to find David, and she'll call and get addresses. We'll get some copies right down to you.
That'll be great. That'll be great, Judge. Well, I tell you, you made me think about one more thing about Ron Paul. We see the poll numbers on internet polls and on text messaging polls. He's being totally discounted by, well, even some people on Fox News. Do you think it's going to translate, his internet support is going to translate to actual votes?
I do. I think he's going to surprise everybody by making it comfortable for people to start preaching that the government's too big, too fat, takes too much of our freedom, and takes too much of our wealth. And the more people that hear him the more people love what he says. 50% of all contributions from ex-military go to Ron Paul. That should tell you
50%?
50% of all contributions from ex-military, they can't contribute while they're in the military, ex-military, go to one person, Ron Paul.
Well, Judge, it has been a pleasure, sir, to have you on the show, and I really look forward to reading Nation of Sheep, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Anytime, my friends. Thanks so much.
All right, thank
Judge,
you, sir.
Thank you.